Guys, snowbird season is right around the corner, and I am constantly asked, should we wait until snowbird season to sell our home? Today, I'm going to answer that question. Uh-oh.
You better get fired up.
I got to rub the laptop here, man. She's moving kind of slow today. We've been doing a lot of video editing, so it's moving slow. All right, so today's question. Is it worth it to wait until snowbird season to sell our home? Now, here in Florida, snowbird season is generally thought of as November to April, right? It's when it gets cold in a lot of other states. I'm from Minnesota, so for us, it gets cold, and a lot of our vacations were down here in Florida, and we want to come to these nice warm states. So, well, you got all these added snowbirds down here that you don't have all year. Is it worth it then to get your property on the market? That's a phenomenal question. So I actually looked at the last 12 months of data, and here's what I've got for you. I took the hottest 3 months in the last 12 months when it comes to sales. Okay, so this is literally how many sales do we have in that month? The hottest month in the last 12 months was August, right? Last month. The second hottest month was April, which is at the very end of snowbird season. And the third hottest month was July. All right. So 2 out of the 3 were not in snowbird season. Now, when we look at the hottest over the last 12 months, according to inventory, and I want to explain why we're doing inventory and what inventory is. Inventory is, hey, we've got X amount of listings on the market and X amount of sold in the last 30 days, 45 days, however your calculation works. So when we divide it out, how long would it take to sell all of the current housing that we've got in the market? And whatever that number is, that is your inventory rate. Now, the lower it is, the more of a seller market it is. The higher it is, the more of a buyer's market it is, right? So looking at that, and why do we look at that? We look at that because Minnesota's even crazier. So I'm gonna use Minnesota. When I used to sell in Minnesota, people would always say, well, I want to take my home off around Thanksgiving because it's so doggone cold. We've got Thanksgiving, we've got Christmas, we got New Year's. Then it's just freezing cold until about March. So let's just hold off until March. I don't want to sell my home. Well, I actually did the research and I saw that, yes, sales were down considerably from November to February. But because everybody believed that, there were buyers still out there buying and far less competing homes out there that they had to choose from. So maybe sales came down 20%, but if listing inventory came down 50%, it was actually a better time to sell in the winter than it was in the summer in Minnesota, right? So down here, we're looking at inventory stats for that exact same reason. So what were the 3 hottest months when it comes to lowest amount of inventory, right? Because that's what a seller wants. The hottest month was September a year ago. That was the hottest month when it came to inventory, lowest inventory. The second hottest was the next month, October. And then the third hottest was last month in August. We had a really good month last month. None of those months falling in what we would consider to be the snowbird season. Okay. So does that then mean that the snowbird season is not a great season? Looking at the data as I have, you guys know I'm a nerd, man. I look at this stuff all the time. In my opinion, it depends on so many other things, so much more, right? If you are a condo or you've got a secondary property that's maybe 3-4 blocks from the ocean, yeah, that type of property is going to be a lot more attractive to snowbirds than people who live in the area. And by the area, I'm even talking about Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, Miami, people who are going to buy here to live here in a permanent homestead residence, right? So I think there are other conditions that have a much bigger impact. And I listed 6 out. Mortgage rates, the election. And it's not the election itself, in my opinion. It's the perception of the election, right? Prices, inflation. And when I say inflation, I mean people's ability to make purchases. If inflation is really low, then even if prices haven't gone up, your buying power is strong and you can go out and buy. If inflation is really high, even if prices are stagnant, your buying power is a lot less, right? So you're probably not going to go out and buy a home, or if you do, it's going to be a lower priced home. The economy, and I would even go so far as to say the perception of the economy. And I've used the word perception a couple times now, which leads into my 6th one, which is the news cycle. what the news cycle is spitting out will impact people's minds. It's crazy how easily people will listen to the news and how easily they are influenced based on the news. And a lot of times, and I'm sure in your industry you would say the same thing, right? The news isn't true a lot of times, or at least it's a skewed view of the truth. So those things tend to have a bigger impact. And I can tell you, as a guy who nerds out on this all the time, if I'm selling my house in Florida and I've got a normal single family home, it's not a condo, it's not close to the beach, I'm here in the heart of Port St. Lucie, I'm on the west side of Port St. Lucie, I don't care about snowbird season at all. I'm looking at my personal situation. I would tend to guess that 70-80% of people, when they go to sell, they need to sell at a specific time. Can they bend 30 days, 60 days, whatever? Sure. But to sit and wait for the perfect snowbird season is something that most people cannot conveniently do. So for the 20-30% who can, again, unless you've got one of those specific cases, I just don't think that it's worth looking at the season as much as it is everything else going on in the economy and the world and the news and everything else. So guys, if you've got something hot in the market that you'd like me to touch on, feel free to put it in the comments. Otherwise, thanks for joining me as I'm here every single Monday at 11 o'clock. We'll see you next Monday.